Thank you so much for doing this first and foremost. Congrats on a great coaching career. Any idea what you're going to do next year?
No, I don't. Listen, I've retired from coaching. I haven't retired from life. And, I'm open. I want to stay involved in the game in some capacity. Yeah, it's just retiring from the coaching. Going to take this summer to kind of reevaluate everything, and we'll go from there. We'll see what happens in the fall.
Rick, I look at your hockey DB, and it's just one of those ones that you look at where you just scroll and scroll through the decades. It's incredible. But I want to ask, you're drafted in 75. You have a very solid, very respectable playing career in the NHL. And as if that wasn't enough, that's just a blip on your hockey DB when you get into the coaching. Did you know when you were a player that that's something you wanted to get into to that degree?
You're being very kind about my playing career because I wasn't that good, which is why we bounced around a little bit. But I think near the end of my playing days, which was like 27, 28 years old, I knew then that, listen, my career wasn't going to last as long as we had hoped when I was drafted in 75. And I knew I wanted to stay in the game. So fortunately at that time, I was with the Winnipeg Jets. And the general manager at that time, John Ferguson Sr., he and I had a great rapport. He was the one who traded for me back in 1980 from the St. Louis Blues. And we had talked about, okay, when the playing days were over, would you want to get into the coaching? And I said, absolutely. So we did a contract, and those days you did it by yourself and you could do different things. But I had a clause in my contract that here was what I was being paid for playing, and there was a clause B that, okay, when you get into coaching, this is what you're going to be paid. So we fortunately, John Senior helped me get into it. He knew I wanted to have a passion for the game. He knew I wanted to stay in, and he helped me along the lines to get to where I am today without question.
What was your favorite part about coaching?
Everything. Really, honestly, listen, I've been fired more than once, more than I'd like to be. And, there's a lot of highs and lows that come with the coaching, as you know. But listen, I love the game. And when you love the game and you have the passion for the game, you find a way to overlook all the negatives that happened to you during your career. And, fortunately, I had my wife, Judy, support me all along the way, because there was times that, I got to look at her and say, and I'm waiting for her to say, Rick, maybe you should try something else now. But that never happened. It was all, where are we going next? And so we were, listen, we were, as you guys know, we were a hockey family. And listen, I loved everything about coaching. I love the challenges. I love the rapport you build with your players. I love the excitement of the game. I love the playoffs. And yeah, I mean, there's some tough times along the way, but it's your passion for the game that has to carry you through those. And I was asked the other day, what are you going to miss the most? I'm going to miss all of it. And I love being behind the bench. I love the practices. I love working with the players, trying to make them better, both as human beings and as men and as on the ice. So I'll miss everything about it. But I also know that it was time. And it's been almost 5 decades. And and I think somebody told me a long time ago, you'll know when it's time. I kind of knew it was time.
What are the specifics behind that? I know I didn't play or was involved in the game not even half as long as you, but after the amount of time I spent, the thing with me was packing up every fall and packing up every spring, having 2 places to live and manage, negotiate, never really unpacking your suitcase. It felt like I just wanted to put some roots down. And that was when it was it for me, when you got family and, as supportive as my wife was, it was up to me, but I was excited to not have to go move to who knows what town. Was that something that was in your mind, or what was the kind of deciding factor where you were excited to call her a career and not have to do anymore?
Well, I guess the whole thing, I mean, I go back to 1999 and my wife and Judy and I and Kristen were going to Phoenix. My son, Ricky, was going to Dalhousie in Halifax. And my daughter or Ryan was going to Brampton to play junior hockey. And I think at that point we said, okay, where's home going to be? So the boys were both born in Halifax. Judy and I went to high school together in Halifax. So we built a home back in Halifax. So all those ups and downs and the moves and everything, we always had a home base. We always know where home was. And now, like, my daughter works for the Predators in Nashville. Ryan's obviously in Ottawa. My son Ricky and his wife live in Denver. If you went to them and said, "Where's home?" they'd all say that the house in Halifax is their home. And that was important to get over all the moves and the packing and everything else. Plus, Judy, everywhere we went, Judy just said, "This is our home." We never rented a house. We always bought once we got into the coaching. So the kids knew this was their home. And Judy always said, "It doesn't matter where your home is. Your home is regardless of the city." And she always just told the kids, "This is your home right now." So that helped. But having the home back in Halifax was a huge help for us to get through all the moves and the packing and everything else, because by the end of it, you always knew, okay, end of the season, we know where we're going. End of the career, we know where we're going. And the summer vacations for the kids, they knew where they were going. So that helped stabilize the family life without a doubt.
Talk about a power family, and you talk about power. How much are you going to miss Connor Hellebuck, Laurent Brossoit? I always, like to bring up the fact about goaltending. We talk about this being a Leafs show, I should say, quite a bit. Can you speak to the dynamic of having, a stud netminder or trusting your goaltending, and what's that done for your career?
Great goaltending makes good coaches, right? Without a doubt. This game is becoming more and more relying on your goaltender. It is, and the game is so faster now than it's been ever been. It's more highly skilled players are creating more offensive chances. No matter what the coach does in terms of a game plan and everything, you're going to need saves. And fortunately for me, the last 25 years, I've been fortunate. I've had great goaltending. I go back to Vancouver, 7 years there. We had Luongo. He was just, a franchise goalie. Went to Tampa for 5. We had Vasilevsky. We had Ben Bishop. Dallas, we had Ben Bishop. And then Winnipeg, we have Hellebuck and Laurent Brossoit come in this year and was outstanding for us. But you don't win in our league with average goaltending. You just don't. Average goaltending means inconsistent goaltending, and you're not going to win. You're not going to get very far in the playoffs with average goaltending. You need elite goaltending in our league today, more so than ever. And we're fortunate in Winnipeg to have Bucky, because he was outstanding. Obviously, he's going to win the Vezina, or he should win the Vezina. And we had a great signing last year, bringing in
Brossoit?
Yeah, so he was outstanding for us, and that really helped us as well.
I bet.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Can you talk a little bit, like, through the generations and decades that you coached? I mean, I even noticed it. You get different generations of players coming in with different culture, different backgrounds, different ideas of how things go. How much did you have to adjust your coaching style according to the new generations of people that are coming through your teams?
Well, I've always taken pride in my ability to communicate with the players. And again, the players, the coach has to adapt to the players. This generation is different than the last generation, but they're not going to change. So the coach has to adapt to the generation that he's dealing with. But when I first got into coaching, I always said, I want to coach the way I wanted to be coached. All I wanted to know as a player, tell me where I stand, tell me what I need to work on. Just let me know, if there's tough conversations, there's tough conversations. You have to have them. But the biggest thing with today's player is they need that communication. They need to know why we're doing things more so than ever before. So we're doing this now. What's the next play after that? So the players today, they're more highly skilled, but they want more answers. They need more coaching, because no one's going to the minors for 3 or 4 years anymore to figure out how to play. They're kind of rushed into the league now because of the skill level, and they are ready with the skill level, and you've got to help them along the way. But the biggest thing, regardless of the generation, is it's that ability to communicate with your players. As you know, better than anyone, you have to build a trust. The coach has to build a trust with the players. Now, you're going to have different relationships with every player, but there has to be a trust that the player knows you have his best interest at heart. And if he does these things, he's going to make the team better. And the team game is what has to be sold more so now than ever before to these young players, understanding the team game, and the success comes from the success of the team, not how many goals you put up. So but those things only happen with communication and building that rapport and building that trust with each player.
So you saw the Leafs a few times this season. What were you able to see up close with this team?
Oh yeah, we only saw them twice, and so I don't follow the Leafs as close as everyone else does. But a lot of respect, man. They've got a great team. They've got a lot of skill. And listen, there's only going to be one team happy at the end of this year, as we all know, and that's the team that walks away with the cup. Everyone else has to get better in some areas. They do. Even the losing team in the finals, they're not good enough. They have to get better. So every team has to get better. I've always had a tremendous amount of respect for Brad Treliving. He does a phenomenal job as a general manager. Love Craig Berube. He's a great coach. So those two guys are going to identify the issues that they need to get better and have a better shot at the Stanley Cup. But I love the Leafs. Honestly, we went into Toronto. We played one of our better games all year. We lost 1-0 in overtime. Matthews scored a goal, but I think they had 4 scoring chances the whole game. We had a 2-0 on penalty kill. We had great opportunities. Their goaltending was great, and then they beat us in Winnipeg. But ton of respect for the skill level of that team and the players that are on that team. And again, I have nothing but respect for both Tree and Chief, that they're going to do a great job with the Leafs this year. They're identifying what they need to get better and have a better shot at the Stanley Cup. But again, they've got the nucleus of a great hockey club. Now it's just putting in the right pieces.
Yeah, what's your thoughts lately on the revolving door of coaches? It seems like it's win now, has to happen. Everyone's on the time crunch, and the quickest way to kind of shake things up is to remove and replace a coach. Do you like that mentality? Do you think it's effective? And what effect do you think Craig Berube could have on this group right away?
Well, he's a different voice. He's won the Stanley Cup, so he's got that pedigree behind him. But I don't like the fact that there's 19 coaching changes in the last 2 years. Listen, everything today is the coach's fault, and that's wrong. It really is. Like sometimes the team just doesn't play well. The team just doesn't gel. There's a chemistry issue, whatever it is. Every issue that goes wrong cannot be the coach's fault. It's the reality of the world we're living in now. Players have the 8-year contracts. They're more business partners now with the owners because of those contracts. Everyone's working under a salary cap. There's more pressure on every team now to win than ever before, to get into the playoffs. And sometimes, like, you get in the playoffs and you lose, well, everybody's upset again at the coach. Listen, it's both. It's the coach needs the support, and the players have to know he's the guy. He's not going anywhere, and that helps the coach build that locker room. But if there's always an easy out, and what you mentioned, like, okay, let's replace the coach, that permeates through the locker room. And okay, if we don't do well now, the coach is the guy that's going to go. And so there's a comfort level with our players that has led to all of this. And listen, they earn their contracts. They got nothing but I'm happy for them. Whatever they get paid, the security they get, as much as they can make, that's fantastic. Good for them. That's what being a player is all about. But there also has to be accountability to both coaching and the players. Everything that goes wrong can't be a coach's fault. It just can't. And some players, they have a bad games, they're having a bad stretch. Okay, the coach has to work with them to get through it, but the player has to take some accountability for that as well. And so it just seems we're living in a world today. And listen, if you have thin skin, don't get into coaching, especially today. But it's the world we live in, and I don't like it all. But there's 19 coaching changes, and I'm in there. But I retired. I'm the only guy that's done that. So I just don't like the fact that the easy way out for every organization now is to blame the coach.
It's not right unless you go to Barry Trotz school and you become a GM, then you last way longer, right? I think for some weird reason, like GMs, and we love Trotzy on this show, we had him on last year, but for some reason, like GMs just last longer, and I couldn't agree more. But luckily in this market, we're blaming players when we cover the Maple Leafs. The Mitch Marner conversation is a polarizing convo for sure as we inch closer, obviously, into this offseason. What do you make of Marner as a player? And, obviously somebody with the pedigree and the resume and the experience you have. Can you maybe just speak to like working with star players and kind of the internal conversations that happen behind the scenes when trying to figure out what to do with somebody of the ilk of a Mitch Marner?
Listen, Mitch Marner it's a world-class skill, and I have nothing but respect for the way that guy plays the game. You can't win without the goal scorers. You can't win without the skill, no matter what. You got to have the goaltending, you got to have the coaching, but you better have that skill to finish it off. So, there's conversations. Again, these are conversations that the coach can't be afraid of, and the player has to be receptive to what is being told to him. And if there's changes to the player's game that have to be made in order for him to help the team win more, then those conversations have to take place. And if the coach is afraid of those conversations, that's one thing. If the player doesn't like what he's hearing and refuses to change, that's another thing. But if you're going to win the Stanley Cup, those conversations have to happen. And it's with every player. It's with every elite player. And you have to that they buy in, and again, it goes back to what I talked about earlier, the team game. The team game has to come first. It does. That's where the success comes from. And then you have a total buy-in, and regardless of the skill level, regardless of the role, the status of every player is they're important to the team. The high-end skill guys, yeah, they mean more. Do they have to make some changes to their game? Usually they do in order to win. I mean, McDavid and Draisaitl, they've clearly made changes to their game to get them back into the finals. So good for them. But Mitch Marner, have nothing but respect for his skill level. He's got a great hockey IQ. And again, the Leafs, they'll figure out what's best a lot more than I know. But I just have a ton of respect for the man as a player.
What's it like in this situation? Say a team does want to move on from a player, but this day and age, a lot of high-end players have no move contracts. So when you're having those conversations you talk about, is it that much more delicate, being as you don't really have the power to, make change without them being on board? Does that make it more delicate and difficult to have those conversations you're speaking of?
But you still have to have them. And again, you can't be afraid of them. And you got to lay it all on the table. I mean, you can't walk out of those conversations, the player questioning it's got to be black and white. It can't be gray. And you can't be afraid of those conversations. And the player can't be afraid to sit there and listen and accept it. Okay, you know what? We didn't win the Stanley Cup. I got to make some changes. And to me, it always goes back to that. If you want to win the Stanley Cup and you haven't won it, then you got to be willing to make some changes to your game. The coaches, we have to change. There's no question. There's a lot of onus on coaches that change daily, right? Pretty much now. But the players have to be willing to change as well. And then it's up to the player and the organization to figure those things out.
Lastly, I just want you to put something to bed. I know a picture went viral recently of Craig Berube speaking with Mitch Marner in a coffee shop. This is a common practice for a new coach coming in, regardless of contracts, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, again, it's building that relationship right away. I'll just use my example in Winnipeg. When I took over 2 years ago, man, I made phone calls and talked to every player. I needed input from every player to see what they were thinking about, to see what they see as the team. How do we get the team better? How do we get you better? And you have to have those conversations. So good on Chief to do that. But again, that's building those relationships now, before training camp. That's building the trust between a player and a coach now. You can't wait till training camp. These conversations have to take place now and during the summer. So everyone's on the same page going into training camp, and they have expectations for the team and themselves going into training camp.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.